Hey everyone, this is Ben, and I'll be reviewing the new Xbox licensed G7 Pro controller by GameSir. So this is actually a pre-release unit that was given to me for testing and reviewing, and the actual box for the full release will look a little different from the one I have here. But everything that's inside of this box will be all of the same things that will be inside of the full version as well. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not being paid to do this review, and I'm not being forced to give a positive review. These are all of my honest thoughts and impressions of this controller. Alright, let's see what's inside. So obviously, you get the controller. Let's put this aside for now. You get a 2.4 GHz dongle for wireless on PC, USB-A. You get the charging dock. You get two extra D-pad options, the classic cross shape and the hybrid shape to go with the circle shape that's on the controller already. Under here, you get a 3 meter long USB-A to USB-C cable. Looks and feels very premium. Then you get a sticker, a little thank you slip with some QR codes for support and contacts, a 1-month free trial for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and a really large multi-language manual. Now for the actual controller itself. Let's do a little sound test and then we'll get to my initial impressions. So right away when I first held it, my thought was, that's quality. It looks clean in my opinion, especially with the white on gray color scheme. The sticks are super smooth with tight tension, feels even no matter which direction I push. The centering spring is very good, there's little play when you wiggle the sticks around at rest. There's very pronounced stippling on the caps, and they're not as tacky feeling as say the DS4 or the DualSense, but I don't think my thumbs would easily slip off while playing games, and they're probably more durable since they're made with a harder rubber. Both the face buttons and D-pad are very clicky. If you're a fan, you won't be disappointed. I like clicky, but the face buttons are a little loose, and there's a bit of a rattle when I press them. The D-pad is also too loose and a little too easy to actuate. I would have liked them to take a bit more force to press down, like on the FlyDigi Vader or Apex controllers. It's also not very stable, and you can see just how much is shifting in its position. The rest of the front buttons are good, but the home button also has a bit of a rattle. The triggers feel good, smooth and even with a dampened bottom out. The bumpers are good, tight and tactile. The new shoulder buttons are very clicky. They're in the perfect spot for my grip. They're easy to press and easy to distinguish from the triggers and bumpers. One thing I'm not a fan of though is that there's a bit of a pre-travel before they click, and it's almost like I'm bending something that shouldn't be bending. I also would have liked them to be a bit taller, but that's a minor and personal nitpick. The triggers of course have switches to change them from analog to micro switch digital, and I've got no complaints, almost instant actuation. And of course they have two back buttons. They're classic and feel pretty much the same as all the other GameSir controllers with back buttons. That's not really a positive thing for me though, since I find that they're very loud and hollow sounding, which makes them feel cheap. They're also really smooth to the touch, which is weird. because even the rest of the back shell has some texture to it in comparison. They're positioned very well ergonomically though, and they're large and easy to press anywhere. You can also lock them in case you don't want to use them. Now the key features of the G7 Pro. This controller is an officially licensed Xbox controller. Easiest way to tell, just by looking at it, is the logo on the home button, of course. It is wired only for Xbox. I know a lot of folks will be disappointed with that info, and GameSir has announced that there will be a wireless Xbox version coming in the future. No concrete release dates as of yet though. I play almost exclusively on PC, so it doesn't bother me at all. The 2.4 GHz dongle that comes with the controller is for wireless on PC, and it also has Bluetooth connection specifically for mobile gaming. The triggers are dual mode with Hall effect analog and micro switch trigger stops for digital. It of course has 4 programmable extra buttons, 2 on the back and 2 on the shoulders. This is another point of contention for a lot of people. It doesn't have macro and turbo functions. For some, this is a make or break. For me, I'm a sweaty FPS gamer who wouldn't use them anyways. It does have gyro capabilities, but it's PC only, since just like with macro and turbo, Microsoft doesn't allow them on officially licensed controllers. Again, I don't use gyro, so I can't offer any insight on how good it is. Both the face buttons and the D-pad use micro switches, but the face buttons are optical micro switches, which should theoretically offer better durability and performance. The controller has 4 rumble motors, 2 in the handles and 2 in the triggers. Here's how they sound. It has a 3.5mm audio port, and it works both wired and wireless. I've tried it, and it seems to work well, but I plug my own headphones into my PC, so it won't be used that much by me. The charging dock that comes with it has a smart auto start-stop. When you put the controller on, it automatically starts charging, and you can tell by the pulsing LED light bar on the bottom of the dock. When it's finished charging, the light will turn off. You can keep the controller on the dock, it won't overcharge the battery. It also serves as a USB port under the lid at the bottom, and you can plug in your dongle for wireless. A nice touch. The controller has 1000 Hz polling on PC, both wired and wireless, but again, Microsoft limits the polling rate of their controllers to 250 Hz. So officially, the G7 Pro offers 250 Hz polling on Xbox. I know that there were exploits in the G7 SE to allow for 1000 Hz, or at least higher than 250 Hz. And I'm sure something similar will pop up for this controller as well. Contrary to popular belief though, polling rate does not automatically correlate to actual latency, and there are many controllers in the third-party market that offer a 1000 Hz polling rate but have very poor latency. One feature I find pretty cool with this controller is that it has a 3-piece magnetic faceplate cover, and the shell is clear and shows the internals underneath. It looks sick in my opinion, very reminiscent of the Khalid line. Just look at that. With the faceplate cover taken off, you can easily remove and replace the D-pad. I personally prefer using the hybrid over the circle, and you can use the cross as well, but it looks horrible with the cover on. There aren't any other G7 Pro faceplates that would serve the cross D-pad better, but I'm sure they'll sell them in the future. As of right now though, the G7 SE and HE faceplates actually fit perfectly on the G7 Pro, and that's a good alternative if you want to use the cross D-pad but can't stand the look with the default cover on. The sticks are also removable, but again, there aren't any replacement sticks on the market right now. The back parts of the handles have a rubber coat finish, but the front parts are stippled plastic, even though they look the same. And of course, the most important feature for most people considering this controller, the sticks use TMR modules, specifically ones that they call GameSir MagRes sticks, which are made by K-Silver. For those who don't know, TMR stands for Tunneling Magnetoresistance, and it's a magnet-based sensing tech similar to Hall effect, but offering higher sensitivity and lower power consumption, while also using smaller magnets. These sticks advertise a 12-bit ADC chip, 4096 level linear joystick resolution, 5 million cycle high durability lifespan, and extremely low latency, perfect for sweaty gamers like me. Based on my testing, and the testing of others who got this controller early, They hit on almost all of their points, and I've been extremely impressed with the performance of these sticks. Oh, and also, since I know a bunch of you are wondering because you probably think it's an eyesore, yes, this cable retainer guard is removable. You slide it forward along its rails and then pull it up and out. As you can see, it's just a regular USB-C port underneath, and any USB-C cable will fit just fine. Here's the circularity test with the controller straight out of the box. You can see that based on the resting values of 0.00002, there's an inner dead zone implemented by default. You can see also that the circularity is quote-unquote perfect, with an error rate of 0%. This is fine for most gamers, but if you're looking for the lowest latency and best performance for these sticks, you'll want to put it on raw mode. Here's what the raw mode results look like. Don't be put off by the jittering numbers and the 8% circle error. The jitter is quite normal, and you shouldn't see those numbers resulting in stick drift in game. Most modern games already implement their own circle algorithm, so having perfect circularity is redundant for the most part. Some games, like Rocket League, actually requires a square circularity for proper movement input. As long as the whole circle is covered and the diagonal overshoots are pretty symmetrical, those are good results. Here's some clips of me playing Black Ops 6 with the G7 Pro.
Enemy UAV inbound. We're winning.
I've been using this controller now for about 2 months, and like I said, I've been very impressed with how it's been performing. I've been mostly playing BO6 with a little bit of Halo Infinite and Warzone with the boys, and I've put this controller through its paces. Before this, my two most used controllers were the DualSense and the Vader 4 Pro. I usually use the DualSense for COD multiplayer and ranked, and the Vader 4 Pro for Warzone and Halo, but since getting the G7 Pro, I haven't felt the need or the want to use any other of my controllers. I've always preferred the Xbox controller layout over the PlayStation, but the performance of the DualSense was too good to not use for COD. With Warzone and Halo having a higher TTK and more long-range fights, the Vader 4 with its smooth sticks and the tension adjustment felt really good to use for those games. It felt pretty good for COD multi as well, but I always seem to do worse with close-range gunfights, and it probably has to do with its higher latency. The G7 Pro is almost the best of both worlds for me. It's got the layout that I prefer, smooth sticks, most of the features I want, and the low latency linear performance. It's not perfect, it's got some issues that I'll get into at the end of this video, but it's damn good, and has most likely become the #1 controller in my collection. Speaking of latency, here are the latency numbers for the buttons and joysticks at both 500Hz and 1000Hz polling, wired and 2.4 GHz wireless. These results are from a beta tester using a GPDL device. These are excellent numbers, specifically for 1000Hz wired. More than good enough to compete with the likes of the DualSense, which most people consider to be the best controller for COD. And speaking of the DualSense, these are the latency numbers for comparison's sake. The button latency for the G7 Pro is slightly faster, while the joystick latency for the DualSense is slightly faster. These are comparing tiny numbers though, and nobody's going to notice the quarter to half a millisecond differences in speed in any situation. Let's go through the software. The G7 Pro uses the GameSir Nexus app, and there are two ways that you can officially get it on PC. You can go to the official website and download it there directly. Make sure you follow the directions exactly for proper installation, or you can go into the Microsoft Store and get it there. I would recommend downloading it from the Microsoft Store. It's a lot less hassle and will more frequently get updated. As you can see, there are quite a few settings that you can play around with to tune the controller exactly how you like it. You get 4 different profiles where each profile can have its own customization, and the profiles are easily switched between on your controller by pressing and holding the M button and then the corresponding face button for the profile. You can also edit the name of each profile to better differentiate them. By the way, you can use either your mouse or your controller to navigate the app. Starting right under the controller, you've got the different polling rate options. I always set it to 1000 Hz. On the left, you can set up the vibration motors. You can set the strength of each motor separately. You can set up the trigger motors to act like force feedback vibration, where the more you press on the triggers, the stronger the vibration. You can also sync the trigger motors to vibrate together with their respective grip motors, and you can toggle to test the different motor strengths. On the right, you can set up your motion controls, or better known as gyro. This is only available on PC. I don't use gyro, so I can't say much about the different settings and what they do. Bottom left are the trigger settings. You can fine-tune the dead zones and anti-dead zones. You can set up your trigger curves. There's also a trigger mode that you can toggle. Middle right is an on-off toggle for if you want your controller to power on and connect when you lift it off the charging dock, and if you want it to auto power off when you put it on to charge. Bottom middle are the settings for the thumbsticks. You can configure each thumbstick separately. You've got your dead zone and anti-dead zone settings. By default, there's a 10% dead zone applied to each stick. There's the curve adjustment setting to fine-tune how you want the sticks to behave. Most people want the most linear curve possible, and the default curve is the linear curve. It's actually quite good. On par, if not even better than potentiometers based on the measurements by one of my fellow beta testers. These are their test results on both circular and raw mode based on the default curve setting and 0 dead zones. If you want to fine-tune your own stick curve response, you can click on this final box and adjust these different points to your preferences. If you hover your cursor over the points, you can see the X and Y coordinates that they're on. And pro tip, if you hold your control key and scroll up on your mouse wheel, you can zoom in the adjustment box to make it easier to put the points exactly where you want them. You can change the stick's outer gate to circle mode or raw, also known as square mode. After changing the stick trajectory and dead zone settings, you can move your sticks around and see the changes reflected on the screen. And finally, bottom right is where you can map most of the different inputs on the controller. You can see all of the different inputs that are able to be remapped, and if you click on one of them, you'll be given the option for what you want to map them to. If you click on advanced settings, you can see that you'll also be able to map keyboard functions to any of these inputs. Whenever you change any of these settings, it will auto-save to whatever profile you're currently on. One of the great options that's available on the Nexus, that I'm not sure if any other controller companies offer, is the shift layer ability. Basically, if I click on one of these inputs and map it to the symbol here, I can now use the shift layers, which basically doubles the amount of inputs I can have. For example, I have my share button set to my shift key. Let's go back to the main page and look to the bottom. Click where it says switch to shift layer. From here, let's map our A button to say volume mute. What this basically does is, when I press A regularly, it will do whatever the A button is supposed to do in whatever game you're playing. But now, if I were to press and hold my share button, which I map to the shift key, and then I press the A button, it will now toggle mute, which is what I set it in the shift layer. In my opinion, this is an amazing feature. GameSir knocked it out of the park with this. Finally, on the top right here, you can check for firmware updates, reset the profile you're on back to default settings, and open a page where you can test the buttons, triggers, and sticks, as well as calibrate the sticks and triggers. I think that pretty much covers it for the app. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, or you need clarification on some of these different settings. So, is this controller worth the wait? We're now at almost 1 year since GameSir first teased the G7 Pro, and 6 months since they officially unveiled it at CES in January. They originally announced a release date in the spring of this year, then they delayed it to June. When June came around, pre-orders finally opened on the 16th, with GameSir claiming orders to start shipping in the beginning of July, followed by another delay, with customers now being told that their orders wouldn't start shipping until the 22nd. It's been a long wait for this much anticipated controller. Personally, I love this controller. It's definitely not perfect, it's got its flaws, but its combination of ergonomics, features, and performance makes the G7 Pro my new go-to for all the games I play on controller. For the most part, it looks and feels like a premium controller. The performance of the sticks are amazing. GameSir has done an excellent job of tuning their MagRes sticks to match the feel, linearity, and latency of the potentiometer sticks for what most competitive players consider to be the premier controller in the DualSense, while still retaining the promise of the durability and resolution of Hall effect technology. The face buttons, D-pad, and triggers have all been improved upon from their Cyclone 2 controller. They added 2 more programmable buttons on the shoulders that are well placed and easy to use, and they added customization in the removable sticks, D-pad, and faceplates to give us more options to tailor the controller to our own personal preferences. Other than some issues that I've already spoken about earlier in this video, there are things that I wish this controller would have had. The extra shoulder buttons are great, but I don't think that they can replace having 4 back buttons or paddles. I think that at this point, 4 back inputs along with 2 extra shoulder inputs should be the standard if you're going to call your controller a pro controller. I've also loved that I'm able to adjust the stick tension on my Vader 4 Pro and would have loved to have that on the G7 Pro as well. On the software and firmware side, they should add the ability to change the bitrate of the sticks, similar to what FlyDigi and BigBig1 have, as well as implement a proper RAW or square mode to their sticks. As of right now, what they call RAW mode is actually an input-scaled circular mode, which doesn't perfectly behave like a true RAW mode should. All that being said though, these are all things that I wish the controller had, but not necessarily things that it needs to have. And even without all of those things, it has still become my new main controller, and the most important thing that I do look for in a controller, the G7 Pro has them. Now that the controller is officially released, was it worth the wait? For me, yes. For you, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video has been useful and helpful in your decision making. If it has, please like this video and share it with whoever else you think would benefit from it. And if you would like to see more reviews like these from me, please subscribe. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.